PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media here in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Ian McKelly. And what a fantastic time we have here in the sports world, and especially for all the baseball fans out there in the sports world. I mean, an MLB All-Star game just ended just around the corner. And we have the second half of your 2023 baseball season. So to get to that point, I'm going to be doing my report cards on the teams in MLB at the halfway point of the season. I'm going to do a standard grade set, so A, B, C, D, or F. And I believe that this is going to be a fantastic show. This is going to be an amazing show, and I think everyone here should watch it. I also am going to go in order from NL West, AL West, NL East, AL East, NL Central, AL Central. So we're essentially going to go West, East, Central. But also I want to include, while we're doing this intro, go to the sportsangle.com to check out all the articles we have written on there. We wrote an article recently about MLB draft, and there was a lot of fun going into that. So check out that article on the sportsangle.com. Also, for all audio listeners on iHeartRadio and Spotify, I also hit the like button, turn on notifications so you not miss any episode of the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. So for MLB, this has been, once again, an amazing season, and I'm really happy to talk about all of this. So let's get to the NL West, and the first team we have to talk about is an organization who has really taken off in 2023. A team that your host, Ian McKelly, predicted at the beginning of the year was going to be an 88-win team, and they were going to make the postseason. Well, 88 wins might have been a little bit too generous, but a playoff team that currently is in the cards. The Arizona Diamondbacks have been an incredible team in the first half of the year, battling with the Los Angeles Dodgers, leading the NL West at one point. And this is an Arizona Diamondbacks team that has progressed very well in the 2023 MLB season. For starters, what they have accomplished in Arizona is they have taken advantage of the young players they have on that roster. They have utilized the young rising stars that the Arizona Diamondbacks have brought up from their farm system. Corbin Carroll is going to be Rookie of the Year in terms of the National League. I mean, he has been an incredible player. His speed, his quickness. Corbin Carroll has turned out to be an amazing player for the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2023. He came up late 2022, showed some potential, and has definitely fulfilled it in the first half of the year. Also, Gerardo Perdomo, he was an all-star second baseman, and for good reason. This guy has elevated his game, solid bat, good defensively. He is someone who the Arizona Diamondbacks can capitalize and use upon for the next decade. I have a lot of respect for Perdomo. You also had the key acquisition from this offseason. You had Lourdes Gurriel, who they acquired in the Dalton Varsho trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. He was an all-star for the Arizona Diamondbacks as well. Solid bat in the lineup. He is someone the Arizona Diamondbacks are using correctly in that starting lineup. So the Arizona Diamondbacks have done incredibly well with those four players that I mentioned. But the rest of that team, they're a good team to watch as well. The starting pitching has one of the best rotations in baseball. Merrill Kelly, when he is healthy and in the starting rotation, he has been excellent. Zach Gallen was the all-star starter for the National League and is a front runner for NL MVP. What an amazing season Zach Gallen has had in Arizona. The bullpen has been steady. The one problem I believe the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to have, and where I could see a roadblock coming, is that the Arizona Diamondbacks, unfortunately, are in the same division as the LA Dodgers. And the LA Dodgers have taken off at the right time. The LA Dodgers that we have known for the last decade have finally arrived in this season. And the Arizona Diamondbacks are most likely going to be a wild card team, like your host Ian Rickelli predicted. But I don't think they're going to win that division, considering what the LA Dodgers have done in the past month. But when I see the Arizona Diamondbacks, when I see them on my TV screen, they have been remarkable. They have been an incredible team to watch, and I think what's going to end up happening is the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to face off against an organization who has some veteran leadership, has some credibility there, and I say to everyone watching around the world, the Arizona Diamondbacks have done pretty well because of the starting rotation with Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. They have done well because of the young up-and-coming guys in that starting lineup and the who that the Arizona Diamondbacks have been using in that lineup. I also have to give credit to Christian Walker. I give credit where credit is due. So, Arizona Diamondbacks are the first team we're talking about, and I give them an A for our MLB report cards in the 2023 season. Arizona Diamondbacks, once again, get an A from your host, Ian Rickelli, here on the Sports Angle on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. I also want to quickly mention, because he is my favorite player on the Arizona Diamondbacks, Evan Longoria. He has been a solid veteran in the locker room. Yes, he doesn't play as much, and his hitting isn't as great as it used to be, but he is a solid veteran in Arizona. I give Evan Longoria his props. One of my favorite players to watch back in the day. So the Arizona Diamondbacks, they were first. Now, we go from a team that's done really well and has exceeded expectations to a team that has flat out sucked. To go to a team that has done exactly what everyone and their great-great-grandmother expected them to do. The Colorado Rockies, they deserve an F. I mean, this season has been dreadful for the Colorado Rockies. There's no nice way to put it. If it hadn't been for the one player required to go to the All-Star game, Elias Diaz probably wouldn't have gone. Chris Bryant, unfortunately, is suffering in Colorado. He signed that mega deal and has actually been put down to the minors on rehab assignments, not once but twice. You have also had Jackson Profar, and he has struggled in Colorado ever since coming from San Diego. What Colorado really seems like, and the reason why they deserve an F, is that every category statistically, the Colorado Rockies are not doing good at in MLB. Pitching has been dreadful. The bullpen has gotten rocked. But hey, what can you expect from Coors Field? It is a hitter's ballpark. You're going to hit home runs out of Coors Field in droves. The starting lineup for the Colorado Rockies, you have Tovar. He hasn't done well. You have McMahon. He's been really the only bright spot in that starting lineup. But yeah, Chris Bryant, underwhelming. Jackson Profar, underwhelming. I mean, this team really is underwhelming. CJ Cron, they thought that he would be a good player in 2023. Had a little bit of a good season in 2022. But yeah, no, even he's doing bad for them. So Colorado Rockies, they deserve an F when it comes to the MLB report card. And I really don't know what to say to make Colorado better, except for the fact maybe keep your star players and don't trade them for 5 cents on a dollar. Just a random idea. Maybe don't trade Nolan Arenado for 10 cents on the dollar. Maybe don't trade Carlos Gonzalez for cents on the dollar. Don't trade Matt Holliday for cents on the dollar. Don't trade Troy Tulowitzki for cents on the dollar. I mean, that's what the Colorado Rockies have done for years. No wonder why Todd Helton is probably the only player I can think of that actually had a long tenure career in Colorado. So Colorado Rockies, they get an F on the MLB report card. Next, we go to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and of course, they deserve an A. I mean, the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing exactly what the Los Angeles Dodgers are supposed to do. They had all-star after all-star after all-star. I mean, what the Los Angeles Dodgers have done in the month of June and in the beginning of July has been great in LA. I mean, this is a team that for the last decade has been making their mark and has been doing better and better and better every single year. I mean, this is a team that won over 110 games last year, and do you think they're taking a step back? Well, 100 wins might be less than 110, but 100 wins is still 100 wins. Now, Will Smith is a credible catcher. I mean, this is a guy that has done really well when it comes to the Los Angeles Dodgers. I will say that Freddie Freeman has done really well as well. And I'm also going to give credit where credit is due when it comes to other players on that team. Max Muncy, he only hits home runs, bud. Max Muncy, he only hits home runs. He's only there for power. Expect anything else, you're going to be disappointed. You also have the JT Martinez situation. They brought him in. He was a low-risk, high-reward type of guy coming over from Boston. Essentially a trade, a 1v1 swap. Justin Turner went to Boston. JT Martinez went to LA. And even he became an all-star and is putting up stellar numbers for the LA Dodgers. And the outfield, David Peralta coming over from Arizona. He's a quality glove in the outfield. You also have the situation with Mookie Betts, where he is sometimes playing second base, sometimes playing in the outfield. Surprisingly, is actually doing better statistically at second base than he did in outfield, and that's something he was a Gold Glove at. So the LA Dodgers, in terms of offense, is incredible. Defense has been outstanding. And the starting pitching, I mean, Clayton Kershaw has had a rejuvenation in LA this year. I mean, Clayton Kershaw, the last 2 or 3 years, people were saying he was starting to fall off. Age was starting to catch up with Clayton Kershaw. Now he is coming back with a vengeance, and he's doing pretty well, despite the fact that Julio Urias is actually struggling for the LA Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw has come back and has done pretty well. So for the LA Dodgers, they get an A for the Sports Angles MLB report card. So yeah, Arizona got an A. LA gets an A. Colorado got an F. And the last 2 teams in this division, one of them has done really well, and one has been so average, it actually hurts. And that team is the San Diego Padres. All right, the San Diego Padres have been so disappointing. They've been so underwhelming. I mean, there's no nice way to put it. The San Diego Padres have been sad to watch this year. I mean, this is a team that made it to the NLCS, lost to the Phillies in 2022. Man, the San Diego Padres were supposed to be this next great team. They were supposed to be this next up-and-coming team in the MLB. But man, this season has been a dumpster fire for the San Diego Padres. All right, this has been a situation where, unlike certain teams like the Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates, the San Diego Padres actually had hype heading into the year. San Diego Padres actually had some semblance of hope heading into the year, and they have just been really underwhelming. The bats haven't woken up. They had to release Gary Sanchez. They released Nelson Cruz. They've released all these players that were supposed to be good in the middle part of the year. San Diego Padres, Xander Bogaerts, who's actually one of my favorite players to watch in MLB. He hasn't lived up to that contract so far. Blake Snell has been underwhelming, and he's another fan favorite of mine. I liked watching him play in Tampa Bay. And Yu Darvish is only around 500, despite being a Cy Young guy with the Chicago Cubs. So everyone's playing undervalued. Josh Hader has not been the clutch closer that he has been in the past. So the San Diego Padres have been a really bad team to watch. Now, ask your host, Ian Rickelli, why are they a C then? The San Diego Padres have been so underwhelming. Why are they not an F? Why are they not a D? Well, that actually relates to the fact of what they did 2 or 3 weeks before the All-Star break. The San Diego Padres have actually been slowly turning it around heading into the All-Star break. They've been racking up a couple of wins at a time and picking up win streaks against certain teams. And, regardless of what they do against the Philadelphia Phillies, regardless if they get swept or if they, take 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3, regardless of what that is, when it comes to San Diego Padres, I look at them and go, all right, they've been turning it around in the late part of June. They're probably going to start turning it around in the middle of July. And because they're picking up momentum and they're only 2 or 3 games out of 500, I will not be surprised if the San Diego Padres end up with a 81, 82 win season. They'll be around 500. And what is a team that is around 500? A C. So San Diego Padres, I give them a C just because they are slowly turning it around in the NL West, and I think they're starting to pick up momentum. And the last team in the NL West, and shout out to Stay Tuned Live, shout out to Joshua Bailey out there and all the people with the San Francisco Giants. And I will say, when it comes to the San Francisco Giants, they have been an amazing surprise to the MLB season. Okay, San Francisco Giants have most definitely been a situation where I look at San Francisco and I think that they have done a stand-up job. And this is a team that was really low on most people's standings. A lot of people did not expect San Francisco to have any chance of success this year. They really didn't. Most people counted out the San Francisco Giants based on the fact that the San Francisco Giants organization, they were tearing down. They were rebuilding. There were certain parts from that team that exploded in 2021 that is no longer there. The starting pitching was different. They had swapped out parts in the bullpen. San Francisco Giants were supposed to be a 75-win team at best. And this season, they are contending for a wild card spot. I mean, this is a San Francisco Giants team that is already at 50 wins on the year, and they have the second wild card spot in the National League. And I think a lot of that has to do with how the starting pitching has performed. I mean, Webb has done well. I also have to give credit where credit is due. It's the bullpen, Camilo Duvall, who actually was the winning pitcher in the All-Star game. He was their sole representative in the All-Star game. Their closer has been one of the most steady closers in baseball today. So San Francisco has done well, and I give them a lot of props. But the reason why I don't give them an A and instead I give them a B minus is simply because I think the San Francisco Giants peaked just a little bit too early. The last 2 weeks heading into the All-Star break, I was noticing certain signs and certain tendencies with the San Francisco Giants organization that really leads me to believe that they are going to start to decline towards the back half of the year. Now, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully your host, Ian Rickelli, is incorrect for all the Giants fans watching around the world. But based off of what I have observed, the San Francisco Giants, the age is starting to catch up a bit. A lot of the bench is not coming through. And I say for the San Francisco Giants, I give them a B+, a lot of respect for what they've done. But I don't know if they're going to keep it up. And I suppose that they are going to be peaking just a bit too early in Major League Baseball. So let's recap the NL West for you here on the Sports Angle on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. So the MLB Report Cards, the Arizona Diamondbacks were in A. The Colorado Rockies, they were an F, an absolutely terrible franchise, one of the worst franchises in baseball right now. LA Dodgers, the team leading that division, with an A. The San Diego Padres with a C. And then the San Francisco Giants, one of the biggest surprises in baseball, they get a B+. Now, moving over to the American League West, as we are doing our 2023 MLB Report Cards, we got to start with the Anaheim Angels, everyone. We got to start with a team that has 2 of the top 5 players in baseball. And look, if we had done this back in May, they would be an A. If anybody remembers, the Anaheim Angels around May were a wild card team. The Anaheim Angels were competing for one of the wild card spots. A lot of people thought they were going to be buying at the trade deadline. A lot of people expected them to go all in for Shohei Ohtani's last year in Anaheim. And what did they do? One of the worst collapses in the month of June. I mean, from June 10th to June 25th, they lost game after game after game. And to make things worse, they lost Mike Trout for 4 to 6 weeks. So one of your best players once again gets injured, and Shohei Ohtani got a splinter on his finger, and that got him to leave a game early. And his most recent game, he had to leave after only 5 innings. So Shohei Ohtani is starting to struggle just a little bit. Mike Trout got injured once again. Brandon Drury has gotten injured. Anthony Rendon has gotten injured. Zach Neto has gotten injured. I feel like everyone's figuring out the theme now. Gio Urshela has gotten injured. Pretty much everybody on this team has gotten injured. Joe Adell has been sent up and sent down to Salt Lake over and over again. David Fletcher has been sent up and sent down to Salt Lake again and again. So the Anaheim Angels have been a really unfortunate situation, and I got to see them live. It was a lot of fun to see. The Cubs took on the Angels. I got to go to 2 games. It was an incredible time. And I think the Anaheim Angels are a C because, unfortunately, they are an average organization at the moment. And let me give you a little spoiler for everyone watching around the world. If there is an organization that's willing to overpay for half a year of Shohei Ohtani, do not be surprised if the Anaheim Angels sell Shohei Ohtani at the trade deadline. All right, do not be surprised if an organization comes up with 4 prospects and 2 MLB players, and they say, that's our offer for Shohei Ohtani, and the Angels accept it. Because if you're a playoff team, if you're a playoff contender, and you believe you can win a World Series, well, there is nobody better in baseball right now than Shohei Ohtani. There is no one in baseball on the same level as Shohei Ohtani. So, for Anaheim Angels, they get an average. They get a C for the 2023 MLB Report Card. This will be the final year of Shohei Ohtani. He will go someplace else. Maybe Seattle, maybe Dodgers. We'll have to wait and see. But I say that the Anaheim Angels, they get a rightfully so C. The Houston Astros, man, this is such a tough team to rank. In fact, I'm not even a kid with you. The Houston Astros have been incredibly tough to talk about when it comes to a report card. Because for the reigning defending World Series champions, they should be a lot better. For the Houston Astros, a team that won the championship 8 months ago, this is a team that should be at least leaps and bounds better than the rest of their division. But instead, the Houston Astros are barely in a wild card spot and are trying to keep Seattle off their heels in the NAL West. This is a Houston Astros team that has dealt with injury after injury after injury. They lost Yordan Alvarez. He is now on assignment in AAA Sugarland. You also had Jose Urquidy, who they lost and is now on assignment in AAA Sugarland. Kyle Tucker, he had an injury. He's out right now. Jose Altuve has taken a step back. Their captain has taken a step back. Alex Bregman is not performing the way he used to be. The Houston Astros are in a weird dilemma right now where their aging veterans and the guys who won them their World Series titles are not performing like advertised. Jose Abreu has been one of the worst free agent signings we have had in the last 15 years. All right, Jose Abreu went from an AL MVP to now barely being in the lineup for the Houston Astros. Martin Maldonado's done well at catcher, and the starting pitching when they're all playing, when Lance McCullers isn't injured, when Jose Urquidy's not injured, when Devi Garcia is not injured. I think you're getting the point here. They do incredibly well, but they have to stay healthy. So because the Houston Astros are still in the wild card spot, because Houston is still 9 games over 500, I give them a B minus because, yes, injuries do happen. All right, it's a part of baseball. You can't really predict it. However, for a World Series champion and for a team that has been dominant for the last 8 years, they have really taken a step back this year. So I give the Houston Astros a B minus for the 2023 MLB report card. Now, continuing with the AL West, and I have to talk about this team. They are right behind me. They're going to be here in Las Vegas in 2 years. But let's just be honest, folks. Okay, let's be honest. They should get an F. The Oakland Athletics of this year have been one of the worst teams in MLB history. They have put up statistical numbers that rival the expansion Mets. They have put up numbers that rival the 2004 Detroit Tigers, who lost over 110 games. I mean, I said at the beginning of the year that I think the Oakland Athletics will win 55 games. I don't even know if they're going to win 55 games at this point. They might even be worse than what I predicted at the beginning of the year. I mean, this team has had record lows in almost every statistical category you can name. In fact, if you go to MLB.com and look up the team stats and you hit all the way down to the bottom, Oakland and another team we're going to talk about later in the show are pretty much the consensus bottom feeder at every single category in baseball. Their pitching is rough. Their bullpen's non-existent. They keep on sending people up and then sending people down constantly, so they're pretty much ruining their potential to become better. Their farm system keeps getting stripped because they keep calling people up to Oakland for 10 or 15 games at a time. Ramon Laureano is one of the only notable veterans on that team, him and Tony Kemp. Nick Allen and Kevin Smith, 2 notable guys who played here in Las Vegas, 2 guys I actually liked playing here in Las Vegas. They're not getting enough time to be on the field. And you have a situation where a guy like Estrui Ruiz, who has over 40 stolen bases this year, just got injured and was one of the best players on Oakland. So when it comes to the Oakland Athletics, this is a situation where I can't think of any positives. And I know we're in Las Vegas. We're in the sports entertainment capital of the world. This stadium's going to be built in 2 or 3 years. I'm going to have to come up with positives. But for right now, the Oakland Athletics, they are hard to watch. They are almost unbearable to watch at times. And because they are the worst team in baseball, the Oakland A's get an F. And on a personal side note, John Fisher, sell the team, please. John Fisher, relieve yourself of command and get somebody else to do your job for you. You are terrible at it. Now, moving on and talking about the AL West, we got 2 more teams to go. The Seattle Mariners. Man, this team is fun to watch. And this is a team that I actually enjoy watching throughout the year. Like, the Seattle Mariners are like my go-to team to watch on television. I mean, so many likable personalities, so many great players, so many fun personalities on the Seattle Mariners. Oh, man, they've just been so disappointing this year. I mean, this is a team that made it to the playoffs for the first time in 21 years, and they have fallen on their face in 2023. J-Rod, Jarred Kelenic, those have been 2 notable guys who are doing well. Teoscar Hernandez has not lived up to what he is doing. J.P. Crawford is a solid defensive glove, but you don't expect much from him offensively. Eugenio Suarez, the third baseman they brought over from Cincinnati. Unfortunately, his stats are not doing that well. I mean, I read a statistic somewhere, the Seattle Mariners, there is nobody on Seattle with an OPS over 900. And that should really tell you how bad the Seattle Mariners have been this year. that nobody on offense is over a 900 OPS. So when it comes to Seattle, they have been disappointing offensively. Defensively, they've been average. I mean, they haven't been great, but not bad either. The starting pitching, Logan Gilbert was supposed to take off. He hasn't. Marco Gonzalez, the veteran on that team, he hasn't lived up to anything. You also have Luis Castillo, who was an all-star for Seattle. I mean, this is a team that unfortunately George Kirby, he hasn't really lived up to what he was doing last 2 years. So when it comes to Seattle, this is a team that unfortunately I have to give a C+ because they're still in playoff contention. I mean, make no mistake about it, the Seattle Mariners are still 1 or 2 games over 500. Seattle Mariners are still around a 500 ball club, and that would put them at a C+ because they're still in wild card contention. They're still battling with the Houston Astros. They're still doing all of that. Just unfortunately, the Seattle Mariners are not at the same level a lot of people thought they were going to be this upcoming year. And the last team that I have to mention in the AL West, the surprise of the season, and the team that I give an A to, is the AL West division leader, Texas Rangers. I mean, this is a Texas Rangers team that has gone leaps and bounds over what they were supposed to do. This is a Texas Rangers team. Jonah Heim has become one of the best catchers in baseball. You also have Marcus Semien and Corey Seager becoming a 1-2 punch, not just in the infield, but in the starting lineup. Josh Jung has become AL Rookie of the Year frontrunner in Texas. Adolis Garcia smacking the ball out of Globe Life Park. I mean, this is a Texas Rangers team that has definitely stepped up in terms of what they're supposed to do. The starting rotation has done well. I mean, I'm not going to say they've been excellent, but they've done pretty well. Jacob deGrom got injured, of course, and that wasn't even a setback for the Texas Rangers. So, when it comes to Texas, I have to give a lot of credit to Nathan Eovaldi for what he's done in terms of the starting rotation. So, for Texas, they get an A here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. We are doing our MLB report cards here on Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. Hey, it's live, folks. Anything can happen, even a brain fart. Now, let me give you the report cards for the AL West, and we will do it once again. The Anaheim Angels get a C. Great start to the year, and then fell off a cliff in the second half of this year. The Houston Astros, they get a B-. They were the World Series champions. Unfortunately, for the Houston Astros, they have not lived up to what they've done the last couple of years. Oakland A's, they get a straight F. There's no nice way to put it. One of the worst teams in history of MLB. The Seattle Mariners get a C+. They're underwhelming, but they're still in the wild card hunt, and they're around 500. And the Texas Rangers get an A. They've had a phenomenal year, have definitely exceeded everybody's expectations. So as we are doing our MLB report cards here on Sports Angle at PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. I want to let everyone know right now, go to our YouTube channel, go to PR Connections Radio, and like, share, and subscribe. Turn on notification bell so you not miss any episode of the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Also, for all the other shows on here, like Vegas Hockey Hub, We Got the Power, Voices of Humanity, Cozy Stone, Crypto and Cash, The Love of Business, so many incredible shows are on here. I highly recommend everyone check out all the content here on PRConnectionsRadio.com. Back to our MLB report cards. Let's go to the East now. We did the West. We talked about the NL West and the AL West. Now, let's get to the NL East. And, of course, we have to talk about the best team in baseball right now. If anybody tries to dispute this, you're simply wrong. There is no team right now more dominant than Atlanta. There is no team with a near-perfect roster like the Atlanta Braves. I mean, they are leading the league in hitting, stellar pitching, bullpen's been spectacular. They have one of the best starting lineups in baseball, 1 through 9. I mean, do I have to really go position by position? Do I really have to prove this to you? All right, I most definitely will. Sean Murphy, who they acquired from the Oakland Athletics, has not just become an all-star catcher, but has become the best catcher in baseball, hitting home runs out of Truist Field, and has been putting up stellar numbers for the Atlanta Braves. He's been not just one of the best offensive catchers in baseball, but has been stellar defensively as well. So Sean Murphy's been incredible. Matt Olson was a little bit of an overpay when they got him from the Oakland A's, but he was still an all-star. He was still somebody that the Atlanta Braves acquired and has replaced Freddie Freeman in pretty good form. Ozzie Albies, my favorite player from the Atlanta Braves. I've always liked watching him play. He's an incredible player. Not only one of the best second baseman in baseball, but you can make a valid argument that he is the best second baseman in the National League. So Ozzie Albies has been phenomenal. Orlando Arcia was an all-star at shortstop after replacing Vaughn Gresham. And at third base, you have Austin Riley, who over the last 5 years has become one of the top 20 players in baseball on a stacked Atlanta Braves team. In the outfield, I mean, that outfield, you have a lot of good players there. Michael Harris has done really well in his position with the Atlanta Braves. You also have the arguably a top 2 player in baseball in Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, this is a guy who's hitting home runs out of every ballpark in baseball. This guy is going to be NL MVP if he keeps up his statistics. So Atlanta Braves have done well in terms of hitting. The pitching has gotten the job done. Charlie Morton, the old veteran who will not retire, he already has 10 wins on the year with the Atlanta Braves. Spencer Strider becoming the second coming of Kerry Wood. I mean, Spencer Strider really becoming one of the best pitchers in baseball. And I also have to give credit to Smith as well, having a good, solid rookie campaign. So Atlanta Braves, they get an A+, the best team in baseball right now out there in Atlanta. So the next team coming out of the NL East is a team that also gets an A, and that is the current wild card spot in the National League, and that is the Miami Marlins. I mean, if anybody would have told you that the Miami Marlins would have 52 wins and have the second spot in the NL East, I wouldn't have believed you before the year. I mean, the Miami Marlins, Luis Ariz, the guy who's at a 383 batting average, trying to get to 400 for the first time since Tony freaking Gwynn. I mean, Luis Ariz becoming one of the most consistent hitters in baseball ever since going over to Miami from Minnesota. You also have Jorge Soler, who ever since leaving the Cubs has hit multiple home runs, key home runs, regardless if he was in Kansas City, Atlanta, or Miami. Jorge Soler has become a home run hitter in almost every ballpark in baseball. You also have Jazz Chisholm, who was the most popular player in baseball heading into the year. He has definitely provided that. Brian De La Cruz, he's done pretty solid for them. Yuri Perez, he did exceptional in his first month. Kind of had a little bit of a skid the last 2 starts. Even with Sandy Alcantara having a bit of a struggle for the Miami Marlins, this team has done incredibly well. Jesus Luzardo, AJ Puck, 2 former Oakland A's, now part of that good bullpen and rotation for the Miami Marlins. So for Miami, I have to give them an A for what they're doing right now. Exceptional work by Miami. And I talked about one team that exceeded expectations. New York Mets fans, you're not going to like me for the next 5 minutes. Granted, New York Mets fans normally don't like me to begin with, but that's beside the point. Steve Cohen, I really hope that you don't take this personally, but buying talent doesn't fix chemistry. I will say it once again for the people in the back. Buying all-stars does not fix chemistry. Buying all of the best players in baseball and putting them on one team, if they don't fit a certain style of play, if they don't fit a certain scheme, your team is not going to fit. And if you want a prime example of that, look at the 2023 New York Mets. I mean, this is the highest payroll in baseball. Steve Cohen has the richest payroll in MLB history. And yet the New York Mets are 8 games under 500. The only reason why the New York Mets do not get an F is because they are not bad enough to be considered an F. The reason why the New York Mets are not an F is because they at least have a viable shot of getting to 500 at the end of the year. But the New York Mets defensively have been really bad to watch. In terms of offense, outside of Pete Alonso and Francisco Alvarez, nobody's stepping up offensively. Brandon Nimmo has been missing. I don't know where he's at. Having a solid third baseman, Brent Beatty, I don't really know if he's developing at the rate he should be. Francisco Lindor has kind of looked like off and on with the New York Mets. I mean, year 1 was underwhelming. Year 2 was great. Now year 3 is underwhelming. Hopefully he doesn't develop that syndrome for the rest of his tenure at the New York Mets. Jeff McNeil has been a bit underwhelming with the New York Mets. Pete Alonso, when he got injured, the Mets started to fall off hardly. Tomas Nido, who played for the Las Vegas 51s and was actually my favorite player on the Mets during this year. He is now the backup catcher to Francisco Alvarez, who's trying to chase the rookie home run record set by a catcher with Mike Piazza. Starling Marte, I really don't know what he's trying to do at this point. Mark Hanna, he's been solid, but I don't think that he has been as great as people wish he was going to be. Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer are showing their age right now with the New York Mets. Really wish that Taijuan Walker, really wish he would be back with the New York Mets. I mean, this is an organization that, Jacob deGrom was on the IR, the Texas Rangers. But hey, the New York Mets, that starting rotation has been a bit shaky at times. So the New York Mets, I give them a D simply because they haven't been bad enough to be terrible, but they haven't been good enough to be contending. So this is my 5 minutes on the New York Mets. And like I said before, New York Mets fans, you're not going to like me anyway. So here you go. Here's my rant. Here's my conversation about the Mets. And I'll say it once again for everyone in the back. Buying all-stars does not fix the chemistry. Oh, and by the way, Buck Showalter, you're going to get fired at the end of the year. There's no nice way to put it. Steve Cohen's going to find a scapegoat for this, and I think Buck Showalter is going to be the guy. So, Buck Showalter, do not be surprised if you get fired at the end of the year, considering what the New York Mets have done this year. Now, moving on from the New York Mets, we got to get to the Philadelphia Phillies, because there's no nice way to put this, but the Philadelphia Phillies, they have been kind of average this year. Like, they haven't been great. They haven't been winning in droves, but they haven't been terrible either. Like, the Philadelphia Phillies, unfortunately, are in a weird situation where they're not bad enough offensively to tank, but they haven't been great enough defensively where they could win games just based off their defense. The starting rotation has some bright spots there, but unfortunately, that starting rotation just isn't enough to win as many games as possible. The bullpen has been okay, but it could be a little bit better. And the starting lineup, Alec Boehm has really turned into a good player. I know some people want him to get traded for another player. We'll see what happens there. You also have the situation with Bryce Harper. Him coming back into the lineup was good for them. The two players on the Philadelphia Phillies that I'm a personal fan of, both players from Las Vegas, Bryce Harper and Bryson Stott. I mean, those of these guys, I wish them nothing but the best. But man, this roster has been really weird this year. So for the Philadelphia Phillies, I give them a C. They've really just been an average team this year. They've kind of been floating in and out of the wild card spot. They've been really staying around the above 500 mark all year long. So Philadelphia Phillies, I really don't know how to judge you properly, except give you a C for being kind of an average team this year in MLB. And the last team in the NL East, there's no nice way to say this. The Washington Nationals are rebuilding. They sold all their assets. And do not be surprised if Josiah Gray, Jameer Candelario, and Lane Thomas are all dealt at the trade deadline. Steven Strasburg, he has not turned out to be the guy he used to be, one of the worst contracts in baseball. Patrick Corbin has not turned out to who he was supposed to be, one of the worst contracts in baseball. You know, a little quick refresher real quick. Had to put some liquids in here. Now, but yeah, Washington Nationals really isn't much to talk about. This is really just a rebuild year for the Washington Nationals, and I really don't think anybody's surprised by saying the Washington Nationals are an F for the MLB report cards. So, getting to the NL East, recapping our our MLB report cards. Atlanta Braves, the best team in baseball, they get an A+. The Miami Marlins, a wild card team, definitely exceeded expectations. They get an A. The New York Mets have been arguably the most disappointing team in baseball. They get a D. And the only reason why they don't get an F is because they're around 500. They can maybe get to that by the end of the year. Philadelphia Phillies, they get a C. I mean, Philadelphia Phillies have been average for majority of the year. Therefore, they get a C. And the Washington Nationals, they get an F because of how bad they have been this year. Now, let's get to the AL East. And I know that there's a lot of people who watch this show who are fans of the AL East. So this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about, as you can clearly see by my face. Let's talk about the biggest turnaround in baseball, the team that is capitalizing on a farm system, a team that's capitalizing on some really good players, and that's the Baltimore Orioles. They have the number one wild card spot in the American League right now. A Baltimore Orioles team that has definitely done what they were supposed to do. And I will say, when it comes to Baltimore Orioles, Gunnar Henderson has not become the AL Rookie of the Year like a lot of people hoped, but he has done solid enough. Adley Rutschman has become one of the best catchers in baseball. They let go of Jonathan Scope, but you know what? That is maybe a good thing because it freed up a little bit of space to bring in Jorge Mateo, the former Las Vegas Aviator, now Baltimore Oriole. Very speed guy, good defensive player. He's now in the starting lineup every day for the Baltimore Orioles. You also have a situation in Baltimore where you have some good up-and-coming guys, Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes out there in the outfield. So I say for Baltimore, they're going to be okay. They're going to be a wild card team this year, and they have done exceptionally well for 2023. The next team we got to discuss is the Boston Red Sox, and they get a C+ simply because, despite being the worst record in the AL East, the Boston Red Sox have at least been consistent. The Boston Red Sox all year long have been floating around 500. Okay, the Boston Red Sox, for majority of this 2023 campaign, they have either been one or two games over 500, or they have been at least a few games within that record. I mean, it's no crazy statement to say that the AL East might have all 5 teams over 500 by the end of the year. Considering how bad the AL Central has been, that's not a crazy statement to say. Now, the pitching, that has been shaky. I'm not going to say it hasn't. Even though Reese McGuire has been a solid defensive catcher, I think he's actually one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. Reese McGuire is one of my favorite catchers to watch. I say when it comes to the Boston Red Sox, they're unfortunately in a weird circumstance where the Boston Red Sox, they are not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to be anywhere near that. But the Boston Red Sox being around 500 at the end of the year, that is a great statement considering them rebuilding this team and trying to put some steps in the right direction. So for the Boston Red Sox, I give them a C+, but that is not a bad thing considering what their record has been this year. The next team we got to talk about, I know there's a lot of people who love this team. Look, Yankees fans, you are either going to agree that they have been an above average team this year, or depending on if you're pessimistic, you are going to say the Yankees are worse than a C, and you're going to bash me for being too positive. Like, there's no middle here. All right, either the overly positive Yankees fans are going to say that they're only half a game out of the playoffs, they're a B team, they're in the B. Or there's going to be pessimistic Yankees fans, and they think they've been terrible this year, and they think they should be lower than a C. Now, the reason why I give the Yankees a C+ is because, yes, they're above 500. Yes, the New York Yankees are 7 games over 500. Yes, the New York Yankees are in contention for an AL wildcard spot. Yes, the New York Yankees, when everybody is healthy, has been a good team. The key word, unfortunately, has been when healthy, the New York Yankees have been good. When Aaron Judge out of the lineup, the New York Yankees starting lineup has been abysmal. Giancarlo Stanton is getting paid $27 million a year to bat barely under 200. DJ LeMahieu is not living up to his weight. Gleyber Torres had a solid first month of the year. Now I don't know where he's at. Josh Donaldson has been one of the worst contracts the Yankees have brought in over the last couple of years. Anthony Volpe, he has been a good prospect, but there's still a lot left to be desired by Anthony Volpe. I also have to mention that when it comes to Eduardo Cabrera, he has been going up and down between MLB and AAA constantly throughout the year. They let go of Aaron Hicks about 4 or 5 years too late. Their outfield situation has been really weird. I mean, Harrison Bader's done pretty well, but he's been a notable exception. And I also have to mention that this is the same New York Yankees that went out and was like, you know what? We're going to go get a big name. We're going to go out and get somebody that is going to team up with all of these great players. Oh, I know who we're going to go get. We're going to go get Anthony Rizzo for the New York Yankees. All right, the New York Yankees, we're going to acquire the guy who was the Cubs captain for all those years. And Anthony Rizzo, they're putting him not in the right place in the lineup. As somebody who watched the Cubs long enough, I will tell you, you are not using Anthony Rizzo correctly. If you could please use him correctly, that would be fantastic. Also, Jose Trevino and Kyle Higashioka. Yeah, can you really pick just one catcher and use him for majority of the year? I mean, having this carousel of catchers, I think that has really not been a good thing for the New York Yankees. And I know there's going to be Yankees fans out there asking me, why am I either bashing the Yankees or why am I taking it easy on the New York Yankees? Because once again, there's going to be the positive Yankees fans that are thinking I'm being too harsh on them. When in reality, I'm just pointing out why they're a C+. They have been an above average team this year. The starting pitching, Garrett Cole, has been exceptional. Domingo Germán had that perfect game. That was incredible. Carlos Rodon, 0-2 in his first couple of starts for the New York Yankees. You paid him over $100 million to pitch for you. The bullpen has been steady. All right, I will give credit where credit is due. The bullpen has been okay. Tommy Canal, he's done well. Albert Abreu has done well. All right. Phillips has done well. All right. So the Yankees bullpen isn't the problem. I'm saying for the New York Yankees, the people who are very nice to them and people think I'm being too harsh, you're being overly positive. These are the Yankees fans who are expecting them to still make the postseason this year. All right. So the positive Yankees fans, you're not going to like me this episode. But for the pessimistic Yankees fans, for the people who are always negative, you're going to complain I'm not being too harsh enough. For the people who are bitter Yankees fans, you are upset because you know they're not going to make the playoffs. The bitter Yankees fans are not going to be happy with me because I'm being overly optimistic on the fact that the Yankees can still make a wild card spot. So I'm in a lose-lose situation here, so I'm going to move on because I'm not going to please the positive Yankees fans, and I'm not going to please the bitter Yankees fans, so I'm just going to move on. Your grade is a C+. You've been above average this year. That is pretty much the best way I can put it. So to go from one above average team to arguably one of the best teams in baseball, okay? For one of the best teams in baseball, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. Got to give them an A+. I mean, this is a Tampa Bay Rays team that had 4 or 5 players go into the All-Star game, and this is a Tampa Bay Rays organization that year after year after year has become one of the most solid and consistent teams in baseball today. I mean, Randy Arozarena, him being the All-Star he was himself, yeah, he's been striking that pose a lot this year. He's been doing pretty well at Tropicana Field. Yandy Diaz has been a solid first baseman. Christian Betancourt, he has been pretty reliable at catcher. I mean, this is a guy who was pretty much an outcast in San Diego. Now he has been pretty good in Tampa Bay. Brandon Lowe, this guy has been in and out of the lineup, but he has now gotten back. Wander Franco, he has taken a step up. He's been one of the best shortstops in baseball. I also have to mention when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, their outfield has been one of the most reliable parts of baseball. Starting rotation has been one of the best starting rotations in baseball. Their starting 4 pitchers have been near excellent for the Tampa Bay Rays. Zach Eflin has really taken off after being in a veteran role last year in Philadelphia. You also have Shane McClanahan, who has become one of the best pitchers in baseball. The starting rotation followed by the bullpen. They've had a bullpen who has done really well when they're forced to be put in a situation where they have to close the game out. So, do I expect the Tampa Bay Rays to keep up this momentum towards the end of the year? We will have to wait and see. But based off the first half of the season, I give the Tampa Bay Rays an A+ for their report card as we got to the All-Star break. And the last team that we got to talk about, the Toronto Blue Jays, I give them a B-. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays right now, 10 games over 500. I mean, this is a team that really had a lot of hype entering the year. I mean, this is people who really expected Toronto Blue Jays to take that next step up in the AL East. And they have taken some steps up. But unfortunately, their ladder has had a few steps taken off of it. And they're right back to where they were. The Toronto Blue Jays, in terms of offense, hasn't done enough to win them enough games. The pitching has been very inconsistent this year. Starting pitching has either been spectacular, and they have been putting up 5 or 6 straight games where they're excellent, followed by 5 or 6 games where they let up 4 or 5 home runs a game. Alex Manoah was one of the weirdest situations in baseball this year. I mean, he went from having an excellent 2022 to having to get sent down to rookie ball for the Toronto Blue Jays. I also have to mention the whole Ryu situation. Him coming back from Tommy John surgery after a year of being out, and him being in AAA Buffalo, and the situation that's happening there as well. So Toronto Blue Jays, hopefully they can turn it around in the second half of the year. But for my pick to win the World Series at the beginning of this season, I give them a B-. The offense has been underwhelming. The pitching has been inconsistent, but they are 10 games over 500 and currently the last wild card spot in the American League. So as we get to the end of hour number 1 here on Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. Doing our MLB report cards, I'm going to recap the AL East for everyone watching around the world. So for the Baltimore Orioles, I give them an A. They have been exceptional and will be the first wild card in the American League come playoff time. Boston Red Sox, they get a C. I mean, this is an organization that has performed better than advertised, but the pitching leaves a lot less to be desired. The New York Yankees, they get a C+. Look, they've been an above-average team this year. They're not going to be a playoff team if they perform the way they are now. But if you get back Aaron Judge and you tweak the starting rotation a bit, maybe you could be contending for the last wildcard spot. The Tampa Bay Rays get an A+, the best team in the American League heading into the All-Star break. And the Toronto Blue Jays get a B-. The inconsistent pitching. The offense has been off and on. And I will say at them being 10 games over 500, I think there's a lot left to be desired in Toronto. Now, we have to get to the AL Central and the NL Central. Personally, I wish I could avoid this. Like, as a baseball fan, I think I wish I could just skip all 10 of these and nobody would even beg to notice. But I know there are some people who love to watch these teams. I know there are fans of the Cubs, fans of the White Sox, fans of the Reds. I know a friend of mine who's a Twins fan. So I'm going to be generous, and I'm going to go over the NL Central first, and then the AL Central second. First, we have to go over the proper team in Chicago, and that is the Chicago Cubs. Where do I start with the Chicago Cubs without sounding like a hypocrite? How do I go over the Chicago Cubs without sounding biased, everybody? Marcus Stroman has been one of the best pitchers all year. Justin Steele becoming an all-star. Kyle Hendricks, the captain of the team, he has done exceptionally well. Him being put in the role he's in. Jameson Taillon and Drew Smyly, they are definitely being outcast. They have not been doing that well for the Chicago Cubs. The bullpen has been abysmal. In fact, the bullpen has cost the Chicago Cubs multiple games this year. Letting go of Eric Hosmer, not even 50 games into the year, that was kind of expected. I didn't understand why they brought him in the first place. Yan Gomes being taken over by Miguel Amaya, that was definitely an interesting situation. I also have to mention Nico Hoerner, my favorite player on the Chicago Cubs. He has been a solid defensive glove and has actually been one of the bright spots on this team. Dansby Swanson, their off-season acquisition, he has become an all-star for the Chicago Cubs. Third base, Patrick Wisdom, Christopher Morel. I mean, that's been a really weird situation for the Chicago Cubs because one of them's done exceptionally well. The other one has not. Trey Mancini, him being a solid veteran, you can put him in the outfield. You can put him at designated hitter. Cody Bellinger, he's been hitting the seams off the ball all year long. Probably going to get dealt at the trade deadline, if I'm being honest. Cody Bellinger is probably going to be gone. We also have heard reports about them trading Marcus Stroman, them trading Kyle Hendricks. I get it. The Cubs are still in a rebuild. They're trying to rebuild that team. I understand. With them being 7 games under 500, I feel like this is really the only place I could put the Cubs without being biased. Without showing any bias towards this team, I think a C- is where the Cubs are because they are a below average team. They're 7 games under 500. Now, they're doing better than I thought they were going to be. I mean, I had them winning 75 games this year. But a C- I think is pretty accurate to what they have been first half of the year. So to go from one team that is that's below average to a team that I believe has done pretty well in the situation they're in. The Cincinnati Reds are an organization who has really taken off based off the young talent they have now. Andrew Abbott has become a solid starting pitcher for them. Spencer Steer has done good at first base. You have Jonathan India, who done well in the infield. You also have Ellie De La Cruz, who has become one of the best stories in baseball since May. When it comes to Cincinnati Reds, you also have Matt McLean, who has done pretty good for the situation that he is in. I mean, Cincinnati Reds, they're a good team right now. They are the leader in the NL Central. And the reason why I give them a B is because they've done pretty well, but I think they could actually be doing a little bit better. For them having 50 wins at the year, I think that there is still some stuff they need to work out. They're still a pretty young team. So give me a B for the Cincinnati Reds. The next team in the NL Central, and this is an organization who has just been incredibly average this year, and that's the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, the Milwaukee Brewers are trying to battle with the Cincinnati Reds right now for the NL Central title. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm pretty confident about it, the Milwaukee Brewers are not going to win that division. The Milwaukee Brewers have been so inconsistent at times, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's a Milwaukee Brewers team that if they didn't have the starting rotation they do, they would not have enough wins at the moment. All right, if their bullpen didn't let up games late, they would be in a lot better situation. Their starting lineup has been incredibly interesting because their top 4 in that lineup have been as advertised. Their top 4 in the starting lineup have been the best members of that team. The bottom 6, they haven't been that good now, have they? That bottom 5 in the starting lineup, plus their best utility guy, they have not lived up to any of the stats they did a year before. So for the Milwaukee Brewers and their inconsistency, I got to give them what they are, which is an average organization. Give me a C for the Milwaukee Brewers. Look, I'm just calling them what they are. They've been an average team this year. And my, oh my, how the mighty have fallen. The Pittsburgh Pirates, they get a D here when it comes to Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I mean, they had a great start to the year. They were like 18-7, one of the best records in baseball. And then May hit, and they fell off a cliff. June hit, and they were still waiting to hit. They were still waiting to make an impact. And then July has hit, and the Pittsburgh Pirates are already at the bottom of the cliff. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates have essentially had nowhere else to go but down. All of the good players they had in the first month of the year have fizzled out. All of the starting pitchers that were performing way above expectations have fallen back to reality. I watched the Pittsburgh Pirates take on a team from the West Coast recently, and that West Coast team took them behind the cleaners and absolutely ripped them off constantly. I mean, this is a Pittsburgh Pirates team that I thought would maybe be around 500 this year. Man, oh man, was I wrong about them being 81-81 this year. I will be surprised if they win 71 games this year. So, Pittsburgh Pirates, I give them a D. I mean, look, that first month of the season raises them from an F to a D. But yeah, the last 2 months, the Pittsburgh Pirates have been dreadful. And the last team in this division, and a team that rightfully gets an F, is the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, the St. Louis Cardinals are supposed to be a playoff team every year. The St. Louis Cardinals are supposed to be the Boston Celtics. They're supposed to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're supposed to be that reliable rock that you have in your team. Well, ever since Yadier Molina retired, the Cardinals haven't been the same, folks. And as somebody who has a passionable hatred for the St. Louis Cardinals, I can say that I love every second of it. I mean, I can tell you that I am happy the St. Louis Cardinals have an F. I mean, this team has been abysmal. This team has been a laughingstock. This team has been a joke this year. Nolan Arenado is going to get traded. I hope he does. Paul Goldschmidt, I hope somebody gives you a parachute out of here. Almost all of their players have not lived up to their hype at all. Paul DeJong, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan. I mean, this is an organization that paid all that money to Wilson Contreras just for him to fail in St. Louis. This is also the same team that brought over Jordan Montgomery from the New York Yankees, and he has done abysmal in terms of starting pitching. Jordan Hicks is 1-6 and has not been reliable at catcher. You know, he has not been reliable at closing games out when it comes to Jordan Hicks. Jack Flaherty has not turned into their ace like he was supposed to be. Dakota Hudson, I don't even know where he's at anymore. I mean, this is a St. Louis Cardinals team that has in terms of wow factor, they have been a terrible organization. So St. Louis Cardinals, you get an F. There's no nice way to put it. And as somebody who, once again, has grown up in a rivalry with you, I could say that I hope you sell off all your valuable assets, and I hope for finally the first time in 90 years, the St. Louis Cardinals do a full rebuild. The St. Louis Cardinals finally do a proper 4-year rebuild. They start over from scratch. They suck for the next 4 years, and I will be happy to see it. So reviewing the NL Central as we are doing our report cards here in 2023. Chicago Cubs, they get a C-. The Cincinnati Reds leading that division, they get a B. Milwaukee Brewers have been incredibly average this year, so they will get a C. Pittsburgh Pirates, first month of the year was great, have been abysmal ever since. They get a D. And the St. Louis Cardinals have been disappointing all year long. They get an F. And now the worst division in all of baseball, the AL Central. And let's kick this off with arguably the most underwhelming team in baseball. Let's talk about the Chicago White Sox, everybody. Man, I had them winning the division this year. You know, I'll put myself on the board there for idiot moment of 2023. Like, I will make fun of myself here. I had the Chicago White Sox winning this division. I mean, they have so much young talent. Their farm system, everybody's now at the major league level. They brought in a new manager to replace Terry Francona. Tony La Russa, everybody. Hey, you know what? It's late. You know, I've been doing the show for an hour. Tony La Russa, him coming in to be replacing him as the manager. They also brought in, new hitting coaches, new pitching coaches. I mean, this is a Chicago White Sox team that's supposed to start out brand new, and they have been one of the worst teams in baseball. The pitching has been abysmal. The hitting has been laughable. Their players want to actively get traded. If you read Tim Anderson's lips when he was talking to Jose Abreu, he pretty much said, I want to get out of here. None of that young talent has even remotely become good. And the Chicago White Sox have been a joke all year long. I give them a D- simply because they are still in contention to win the division. Despite them being a joke, they are 7.5 games back. They still have a shot at winning that division, folks. Cleveland Guardians, they get a C. They have been really average this year. The hitting has been okay. Jose Ramirez doing what he normally does. Stephen Kwan and Med Rosario. The pitching, Emmanuel Clase. You have Shane Bieber. You also have guys like Cal Quantrill. You also had Aaron Savall. And those guys keep getting injured. I mean, there's really nothing nice to say about Cleveland except for the fact that they have been average this year. And I really don't have really anything else to say. Maybe they'll win that division. Maybe they won't. One game under 500 right now. And I think Cleveland, unfortunately, is in a situation where if they win that division, they're an easy exit in the first round. If they don't win that division, I expect them to tear it down and start rebuilding. So I think it's a lose-lose for the Cleveland Guardians. I don't see any positive here. But considering how average they've been, they get a C. Now, Detroit Tigers, they get a C-. They have some good parts. Riley Green was hitting ballparks out of the stadium before he got hurt. Javi Baez is swinging at pitches 150 miles out of the strike zone. It doesn't matter if the ball's in the dirt. Javi Baez is still going to swing at it. Spencer Torkelson has not developed to what he's supposed to be. Matt Manning had a no-hitter, but besides that, he really hasn't done well. Eduardo Rodriguez has been okay. I mean, Detroit Tigers, the only thing I have to say is you have a bright future. The farm system's still up and coming. And A.J. Hinch has not been your savior. I know when you hired A.J. Hinch from the Houston Astros, he was supposed to be your savior. I don't think he's done that yet. And I still think the Detroit Tigers are paying for their sins of the Al Avila tenure. So I'll say for the Detroit Tigers, I give them C-. They've been a below average team this year. Not bad, but they haven't been great either. So Detroit Tigers, I give them a C-. Hey, 5.5 games back. We'll see if they make a run. This is the other team I mentioned earlier that with the Oakland Athletics, they are almost the worst in every single category. And there's one team that kind of shares it with them. Well, that's Kansas City. Kansas City has not been fun to watch. I mean, Kyle Isbell and MJ Melendez have kind of been your two notable guys. But Salvador Perez taking a step back. Clearly, he's not in his prime anymore. The starting rotation, even Zach Greinke can't save it. And I really think Kansas City Royals, this deep rebuild they're doing, sad to see, but it had to be done. And I really feel bad for MJ Melendez. He's a good catcher, solid outfielder. Maybe he'll get dealt the trade deadline. We don't know. The team that's currently leading that division, Minnesota Twins, I give them a C+. Look, their pitching has gotten them there. It isn't the hitting. The hitting, Byron Buxton's taking a step back. Miguel Sano, absolutely not. Alex Kirkoloff, nope, absolutely not. I mean, this team has really taken a step back. Carlos Correa has not done enough. I mean, this is a team I really look at, and I question why are they here? Like, is this team really going to win their division? Like, right now, they are barely at 500. The Minnesota Twins are. In fact, I read a statistic somewhere that the AL East, if you put the AL East in order and put the AL Central in order, they all line up accordingly. So the AL East, those 5 records in the AL East are all better than the 5 records in the AL Central. So if you're the Minnesota Twins, look, you win the division. Best case scenario, you lose in the first round. Worst case scenario, you absolutely miss the playoffs. Cleveland beats you. Detroit beats you. You miss the playoffs. And you sign Carlos Correa for pretty much nothing. And the last team we got to talk about in that division. So let me recap this one last time when it comes to the AL Central. Chicago Cubs, I give them a C-. Chicago White Sox, I give them a D-. Cleveland Guardians, I give them a C. Detroit Tigers, they get a C-. Kansas City Royals, I give them an F. And the Minnesota Twins get a C. Now, I will pass this to everyone watching around the world. Do you agree or do you disagree with the Sports Angles 2023 MLB Report Cards? Do you think that we are pretty fair or we were not fair when it comes to the MLB Report Cards? Also, I will say to everyone watching around the world, when it comes to the MLB Report Cards, these are obviously going to change as time goes on. But since we're about 10 minutes left in the show, here's what we're going to do here on the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I am going to quickly recap every team, their report card, and I'm going to tell you what grade they had. We'll go from A to Z. Starting out, the Anaheim Angels, they got a C. Great start to the year. Fell off once Trout and Ohtani have gotten some injuries. And half of their starting lineup has dealt with injuries this year. They get a C. Arizona Diamondbacks, I give them an A. Arizona Diamondbacks have had an incredible start to the year, battling for the NL West. They are going to do a pretty good job in the second half of the year. Expect them to be a wild card team. Atlanta Braves, they get an A+, the best team in baseball, and should be a World Series favorite coming out of the National League. They have a near-perfect lineup, solid rotation. They are the best team in baseball right now. Baltimore Orioles, they get an A. Baltimore Orioles, they have done pretty well, exceeding expectations. They have the first wild card spot in the American League. I expect them to keep it that way. Boston Red Sox, they get a C+. They have done better than expected. They're going to be around 500 to end the year, but they were considered to be the worst team in the AL East heading into the year, so that C+ is warranted. Chicago Cubs, they get a C-. They have been a below-average team this year. Hitting's been okay. Starting pitching, their top two guys have been great. Best of rotation, not so much. And the bullpen has been abysmal. Chicago White Sox, they get a D-. I mean, this has been one of the biggest jokes in baseball. A lot of people had them either winning the division or contending for the division, and they're not doing any of that at all. I give them a D-. I give the Cincinnati Reds a B. They are leading that division right now. They've done pretty well with the young guys they're bringing in. I just question, will they be able to maintain this? And more importantly, will they live up to what they're doing right now? Because currently, Cincinnati Reds are playing a little bit above their head at this point in time. Cleveland Guardians, I give them a C. They've been really an average team this year. Pitching's been okay. Bullpen's been all right. The hitting has been average. It's been decent, but really nothing spectacular to talk about. Colorado Rockies get an F. I mean, this has been one of the worst teams in baseball. This is where veteran players go to end their career, and that is at Coors Field in Colorado. Detroit Tigers, they get a C-. I mean, Detroit Tigers are making progress and steps in the right direction. They might be a contender for the AL Central of how bad that division is. But the Detroit Tigers, I think, unfortunately, they have not been in a position where they are going to do better heading into this year. C-. Houston Astros get a B-. The World Series champions. They are not performing at a level a World Series champion is supposed to play. They'll be a wild card team in the American League, but they are underwhelming at the moment. Kansas City Royals, they get an F. Them and the Oakland Athletics have been the two worst teams in baseball all year. And do not be surprised if Kansas City Royals get a top 2 pick in the MLB draft. Los Angeles Dodgers get an A. I mean, for the last decade, they have been reliable, and they currently have the NL West division lead. All of the great talent they have there, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. The Miami Marlins, they get an A. I mean, this is a team that has over 50 wins at this point. They're competing for a wild card spot in the National League. And unless there is a dramatic drop-off, I will not be surprised if Miami does take it. Milwaukee Brewers, they have a C. They have been mildly inconsistent this year. They have been a team that has been falling in and falling out as of late, and they will probably not be a playoff team come playoff time, so I give them a C. Minnesota Twins get a C+. They're a division leader in the AL Central, and you know what? Good for them, but if they get into the playoffs, they're going to be the worst team in baseball to get into the playoffs and won't even be close. New York Mets get a D. They've been incredibly disappointing this year, and this really shows that money cannot buy chemistry. I'll say it once again. Money cannot buy chemistry. And I think the New York Mets are kind of a living example of that. New York Yankees get a C+. If it wasn't for all the injuries, everything going on, I'd be harsher to them. But the New York Yankees, C+. They've been an above-average team this year. And I think the New York Yankees, once they get all those guys back, they will probably be okay. Oakland Athletics have been the worst team in baseball and one of the worst teams in recorded history. They get an F based off of that merit. Philadelphia Phillies, the reigning NL champions, they get a C. They have been hilariously average this year. Watching them play, there really isn't much I could talk about in terms of positive from the Philadelphia Phillies. They haven't been great. They haven't been terrible. So they are what they are, and that's average. Pittsburgh Pirates get a D. They had a fantastic April, an awful May, an abysmal June, and so far they have had an antagonizing July. So Detroit Pirates, Detroit Pirates, Pittsburgh Tigers, all of that. So Pittsburgh Pirates, they get a D. San Diego Padres, they get a C. They've been really disappointing and underwhelming, but they've been turning it around as of late, and they could be around 500 around the end of the year, so I give them a C. San Francisco Giants, they've been playing way above their head. They've been one of the feel-good stories of baseball, so a B+ for San Francisco. They have done really well at the first half of the year. Seattle Mariners, they get a C+. Like, they've been an above-average team. They're not performing like they were last year, but they're doing better than some other teams in the American League. So I say I'll give them a C+. They have been really just above average this year. St. Louis Cardinals, one of the worst teams in baseball. I'm happy to see it. Let's give them an F. Tampa Bay Rays, they have been the best team in the American League. Expect them to continue that and make the playoffs. Texas Rangers, they get an A. Texas Rangers, they have done a stand-up job getting all that talent together, finally starting to pay off, so I give an A to Texas Rangers. Toronto Blue Jays get a B-. I mean, look, let's face it, they're not living up to what I believe they were going to be, but they're 10 games over 500. They have not been terrible, so a B- for the Toronto Blue Jays. And the Washington Nationals, I give them an F. They're in rebuild mode. Their fans know it. The organization knows it. The players know it. So it's not surprising that the Washington Nationals have an F. I also, before we get to the end of the show, I just want to mention the Las Vegas Aviators. They're taking on the Reno Aces. They are having an in-state rivalry. And I think that the Las Vegas Aviators, if you want to go to a game at Las Vegas Ballpark, I highly recommend it. One of the best ballparks in baseball, state-of-the-art, one of the biggest billboards in baseball. I mean, that scoreboard is amazing. It is huge. I mean, you can see it from pretty much every aspect of the ballpark. That's an incredible scoreboard. You also have the food, which is really good. I mean, the food at Las Vegas Ballpark, they got custom-made stuff. They even have a burger for the opposite team that they make custom for whichever team's coming into town. You also have the Aviator Burger. I've had it before. It was delicious. So for the Las Vegas Aviators, to kind of wrap out the show, I wanted to say to everyone watching around the world, if you haven't been to Las Vegas Ballpark, go down to downtown Summerlin here in Las Vegas, the greatest city in the world, and check out the Las Vegas Aviators taking on the Reno Aces right now, and it's going to be an incredible series. I also want to say to everyone watching around the world, UNLV Rebels, they have a baseball team as well. I know they're going to be preparing for that soon. So UNLV Rebels, want to support the baseball team, I would say go ahead and do it. And for the team that's behind me, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch in 2 or 3 years. So the Las Vegas Aviators, Oakland Athletics, Las Vegas A's, let's make it happen. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. This is the Sports Angle on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. And until next time, have a good one.